trading kind of in a backwards sense, but it does involve risk and make sure you know what you're doing before you do it. All right. So we were talking yesterday about traders that are transitioning into making trading their full-time income. Really and truly, the whole idea behind this really just makes me deeply, deeply think about the idea of self-control, of self-discipline. I think when most traders look at their early trading days, look, if you're at a point where this is a consideration, you're no longer at those early trading days, but think about when you first learned your strategy. How often did you stick to the specific rules of your strategy? You had to learn how to act within a box, which is self-control. That's all it is, right? So we can take this a little bit further. When you start digging into concepts of self-control and self-discipline, you get into the concepts of immediate gratification versus delayed gratification. And the reality is we live in a world where immediate gratification has become too easy. It's become too much of a part of our lives with cell phones and tablets and, everything at our disposal 24/7. Microwaves versus having to cook something. All of these things amount to a society that has not exactly had to exercise a lot of self-control in a lot of areas. So when we take this concept into trading, we start to see how these things will start to affect the psyche in a trading environment. So when you first started, you learned your strategy and you got excited when you saw whatever your setup is, whether it was, breaking out of a zone or region or some indicator crossing another indicator, whatever it is that has become your primary indicator that it's time to get into a trade. Well, every time you saw this early on, you got excited. Your heart would start pumping, beating faster. You would kind of get this adrenaline rush. And what did you want to do every time? You wanted to jump into that trade, right? Well, how did that work early on? Well, the fact is that very few indicators are hey, when you see this happen 100% of the time, take the trade. It doesn't usually work like that. There's usually some market read behind it, some other factors or confirmations or whatever the case may be. So you had to learn how to stop. You had to learn how to take a moment and internalize very quickly, mind you, when we're talking about trading, whether or not this was a viable opportunity. Well, at this point, presumably, you've gotten past that impulse of wanting to get into every trade every time you see it. But what happens when you transition into some sort of a next level account, whether it be an evaluation for a funded account or through a prop firm or the actual funded account itself or depositing your own funds into your trading account? Well, that impulse control gets tested again because what started off as an adrenaline rush of just finding a trade has now become the adrenaline rush of making or losing money. And when you get into a sequence of these, when you've had a win, you start to feel bulletproof. That's the adrenaline, right? Hey, I took a winning trade. Things are moving in my direction. I've had 2 wins in a row. I can't lose today. It's a great trading day. How many times have you said that to yourself? It's a great trading day. And you see another setup, and maybe this is your target trade. You win this one, and you're done for the day. You've hit your target. That self-control starts to dwindle when that adrenaline kicks in, right? Or let's say you've taken a loss, and the first thing that you want to do is, of course, you want to make up for that loss. You want to get back to zero so that you can start making money. Look, I know none of this is new, but the whole concept of self-control and self-discipline is something that I think we sort of have this superficial understanding of, but none of us really tends to go very deep into this. And when you talk about transitioning from trading being a side income to being your primary income, You take all of those things, that first step in developing your trading system. You take that first step into an evaluation or a funded account or funding your own account, getting that first payout, taking that first withdrawal, whatever that case may be. You have now put this on warp speed. Because now the idea is, I have to make money trading. If I don't have an income. Versus, I'm trading discretionary funds. If I lose them, I'm okay. Or if I blow this PA, I can just get a new evaluation. The risk isn't that high. Even if you're not trading your own funds, even if you're trading as a funded trader and the actual cash outlay isn't significant, the emotional outlay is. And when your primary income comes from trading, you don't feel like you can afford another evaluation period. You feel like you can't afford not to get a payout on that next cycle. This is where that mindset work starts to come into play. You really have to start digging into facets of self-discipline and self-control before you make that plunge. Before you take that step. That step is big. There's no denying it. And so the natural effects of that adrenaline, of that self-discipline, self-control, they can be significantly bigger than any step you've taken before, no matter how far you've come in your trading. If you're making 10, 20, 30 grand a month as a trader, and it's a side income, and you're making 7 grand a month in your day job, psychologically speaking, you quit the day job and you run the risk of blowing that income because of the psychological shift. So what do you do about it? Well, as I've talked about before, I work with a lot of tools that are really focused on that mindset when it comes to proactively addressing thoughts, feelings, and triggers, things that set you off, things that put you in a bad mental space, like taking a bad trade, like having a bad day, like having a fight with your wife, like skipping the gym 3 or 4 days in a row when you know you shouldn't. So being stuck in traffic and having some dude cut you off. Or this was always a big one for me, especially when I lived in California. Thank God I'm gone. But you're in line to get into the exit to get off the freeway, or maybe to get onto another freeway, and that line is a mile long. And you get close to the end and you see all of these people darting in last minute. If you don't think that moment is going to affect the rest of your day, possibly even the next day, even if you see it over and over and over, day in, day out, you have to understand, it's been years since I've experienced that, and you just saw this shift in me, because that was a huge trigger for me. I watched this happen every day, and it took every bit of self-control I had not to be that guy, because life's not fair. Why does that guy get to do it and I don't? Right? So, as you start to make different decisions, as you start to make major changes in how trading affects your life, you have to understand that you've got to be proactive. You've got to be on the front end of this, because the last thing that you want to do is have a situation where, well, all of a sudden you take everything that you've worked so hard for to get to where you are today and blow it in order, as a result of not addressing those psychological challenges, that adrenaline rush, that heart palpitation, whatever it is, whatever that effect is on you. So, as I talked about, I do a lot of coaching with traders. I do coaching specifically with traders who are trying to transition into, or who are wanting to transition into, that full-time income coming from their trading. Because it is a big, big shift, and one that absolutely warrants some help and some assistance. So, if this is something that has any intrigue for you, shoot me a DM. I'm going to ask you guys if you would, because this streams on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. I am more proactive, and I get notifications on the messages on Facebook. So if you are not following me on Facebook, if you would do that, it's facebook.com/GAC Trader, or you can actually just search GAC Trading Pro. I know there's a discrepancy in the name. I don't want to talk about that. Had an impulse moment on that one. but shoot me a DM on Facebook, and we'll have a conversation. If this sounds like something that might be a good fit for you, we'll have a complimentary session. Just really kind of dig into everything that's going on, where you are, where you're trying to get to, and see if we might have some solutions to help get you there a little faster, or at least a little bit more securely. Anyway, thanks for your time today. I appreciate you guys. I love you all. God bless. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'll see you guys tomorrow.